Sup nerds, this is Dee.
And this is Shelby, and welcome to Bumpin Gums.
Bumpin Gums is an info dump of information that we wanted to talk about. And this particular month, we happen to be talking about Black History Month.
Hey.
And, you know, even though, like, all the events that are observances that are not white are not in observance, we would observing them anyway.
Yes.
We're going to talk about them anyway.
Yeah.
They still exist to us.
Are observing them regardless of whether people find it or deemed fit to get a day off of work. Or teach it in schools. So we will be educating you through here and all of the stuff that we learn.
Understand that a lot of the information that we are pulling and providing is small pieces of the grand scheme of it all. Yep. If you want to learn more information, please feel free to use those free web resources like the internet.
Yeah.
So,
Google's great.
Google is free.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it. All right. So, not a lot of people are familiar, but there is a lot of history in Wilmington, North Carolina, and that is what I'm talking about what?
Fresh.
Not many people are familiar with Wilmington, North Carolina and its history. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things about Wilmington, North Carolina is it was a big massacre that took place out there. But before we get into the massacre and all the things that happened with it, I want to talk about kind of what led to it and just about what Wilmington was like. So Wilmington was a super large area that was heavily populated with Black people. I mean, like the majority of the people that lived in the area were Black. I think the numbers were like, I don't know, like 11,000 to like 8.
Yeah.
It was a pretty amazing area, thriving Black businesses, just all types of things. There was Black people in positions in government, elected and appointed. Like it was a pretty dope thing for the time. Yeah. Because I mean, 1898. That's pretty.
That's a lot.
That's pretty progressive.
That's a big deal in that time.
Definitely a big deal. So, it had during that time, Black people accounted for more than 30% of the trade skills in the area, and there was a newspaper company called the Daily Record that was owned by Alex and Frank Manley. They are very important to this story.
Okay.
Actually, the whole newspaper overall are extremely important to this story. So, at the time, the Daily Record was the only Black-owned newspaper in the entire state.
The Daily Record.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
In the entire state.
That's wild. And that makes sense, though.
I mean, Black-owned, so fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they wouldn't let them have anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is a time where politically Republicans were the side that most Black people sided with, and Democrats were the other side. This is before that great switch happened.
Yeah.
So they were the ones that actually held they held the control in a lot of the positions in the government. And so the Democrats weren't really happy about that, because most of the Democrats were white people that was just like, well, why can't we? Why us? Why we? Why? Because we supposed to be in everything.
Yeah, 100%.
So the Democrats were pretty much not happy about it, and they wanted to find a way to kind of stop it. And they were concerned that, you know, there was going to be too much power and too much support that Black people had, and they were just not supposed to have that. But there was so much other stuff that was kind of like looming around all this. So there was it was little things here and there, but as it just kind of continued to build, it became a really big thing. So there was an article there was a speech given by a woman in Georgia, pretty much saying that she wanted all Black men to be lynched to protect white women, because they're not going to be safe from the Black men.
The self-importance of white women during that time was just astounding. Girl, no. Please go sit down. Please go sit down. Anyways.
So this newspaper was like, hey, we're gonna just speak on the things that are like really happening. Him and his brother were very open about making sure like the Black voices were out, letting them know like, hey, this is not really true information. And in a response to that speech came his article and explaining that white women and Black men are entering in these situations consensually, and that they are wanting to do these things, and that it is not rape, and that it is not, because he was also saying like, hey, y'all are real good for being like it was rape when the relationship was discovered, and people were not happy about that. But he was always speaking out for the Black voices, always making sure that it was known as to what was going on.
Yeah.
And it was really getting under their skin.
Yeah.
I mean, getting under their skin bad. So that's kind of one thing that's kind of looming. I mean, that actually was a huge thing that was looming on top of the political environment at the time. In 1898 there was another chance for voting, and so they were really wanting to see if there was a way for them to get the Democrats to be ahead of all of the things instead of the Republicans. So you have that they're mad about, because they're like, too many Black folks got these positions. And then you got these articles and this, how dare these black men think they can speak and choose to defend themselves, how dare they. So there's that. So they took these articles and they really found a way to spin it, and they put them out everywhere. They put them out everywhere, and it was like, these Black men want to take your wives. They're
that was always their thing.
That
was always their thing. They want to take your wives. They want to rape your women. They want to rape the women and the children.
Because white women couldn't possibly want to just give up the great white dick and go to Black men. They couldn't possibly be intrigued by a different type of loving.
Yeah, or just a different type of person in general. Different culture, different background. They couldn't possibly.
They couldn't fathom
that.
What do you mean, girl? White men were like, "What do you mean I'm not the greatest thing walking, and these white women don't want me?"
White men are the most sensitive creatures that exist in this planet,
girl.
And they really love to talk about how women are emotional and they can't handle certain. No, men are emotional. Men are emotional, and they are very, very sensitive, and you cannot disrupt or disturb their ego or attack their ego, even indirectly.
Because
then they'll kill you.
Then they will kill you.
Yeah.
So this whole conversation about the lynching of Black men and him putting those articles out and really trying to speak for Black people, they were just not happy about it. And again, like, this is a thriving Black community. This is a thriving Black community.
Yeah.
Businesses, everything.
I mean, housing, they were really thriving.
Houses, communities, like anything you could think of, they had it. Post offices, barbers. I'm trying to think what I was talking about.
They were up and coming.
So they were up and coming. They had all these positions in governments. They had their businesses. They had a whole committee of Black people that they communicated with other government political parties. They just spoke among each other, but it was a Black community. I can't remember what it was called. I just remember it being the CCC. It was like I can't remember the name of it, but it was for Black folks.
Yeah.
So pretty much they wasn't happy about that shit. So what they did was they spread all this misinformation. So this is kind of, again, the upcoming election, the information about, the articles that are being published, just the heightened things that are going on in the world, because it's after the Civil War and all this stuff, right? So there's this group of white men, not about 9 of them, that were like, you know what, we gonna find a way to take our shit back. We ain't gonna have this. This is not how it's gonna work. So they was like, let's figure out a way to do this. Go ahead.
I just picture them sitting around a little coffee table and just really just bitching about their lives and how miserable it is, like a bunch of little bitches. And it's just like, can you mind your own goddamn business?
Literally called a meeting and was like, we need to discuss this.
Can you mind your business? And out of that whole thing, there was one man that was really up in arms about it.
Oh, absolutely.
It was just
and
one
Homeboy's
person.
Name was Alpha. He was extra pressed. Homeboy was big mad all the time. Big mad. I'll tell his
insecurity, bro.
Alfred Waddell. That man, big mad.
Oh my God.
Big mad. Anywho, they spread out these different campaigns about, like I was saying earlier, about fear. They did a whole bunch of fear mongering where it's like, oh, these Black people want to do this. Oh, these Black people are going to do that. They even hired like detectives, some of which were Black, to go around into the communities and just kind of like see what the Black folks was up to. And people would come back and they'd be like, yeah, I mean, they was cool. They was chilling. They was minding their business. Like, nobody's doing anything. a couple of the detectives was like, oh, well, they said that they're going to come and take your wives. And they said that they're going to burn everything down if their elected officials aren't. Were white? Yeah.
Why?
They said that they're going to they're going to take down the government if their elected officials aren't in power. And they're going to do this and this and that. Which the other detectives was like, I mean, I don't know where y'all got that information, but we literally just said they was minding their business. Literally being black and just ignoring and minding their business.
Just minding their business.
And they was like, no, that's not possible. They actually tried to keep black people from gathering in large groups because they were like, I don't know, y'all can't come together because y'all are trying to plot something.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the case. They was like, we've been minding our business, like let us continue to do so. They were fed up with all this stuff. They were fed up with, there was a fusionist party that they had, which had a lot of biracial people in it, but also had kind of a combination of both parties together. And they were like, well, we can't have that either. Like, y'all gotta go, the blacks gotta go, we gotta have this all be on our own, right? They had this group of men. It's so fucked up. They had this group of men that they called the red shirts. They actually okay, so you're familiar. So they had the red shirts. They was going around to different areas and was like they were intimidating a lot of black folks, and it was like going to the neighborhoods and was telling them like, if you go vote, you know, it's going to be a problem, because they were starting to get worried, because this is all leading up to the election. They were getting worried that it wasn't going to go their way. They were very worried that it was going to go their way, and so they were doing anything that they could to prevent that from happening. Yeah. As time goes on, about I want to say the 9th or so, they had a conference with about 20 with about I want to say 20 something people, right? They had a little meeting and they was like, you know what, we're gonna write a white Declaration of Independence. So they write this white Declaration of Independence, which pretty much states like, we ain't gonna be under the control of y'all black folks. Fuck you thought. That's not gonna be us. We want to do X, Y, and Z. We actually need to be in positions of power because y'all are unfit. Y'all can't do anything. Y'all shouldn't have positions of power. Y'all shouldn't really be able to vote. Honestly, we don't even understand how y'all got businesses, lives. You shouldn't even be here. Oh, by the way, we would really ask that you close down that newspaper because homeboy is speaking all this information. And mind you, people have been chilling, right? Yeah. People have been chilling. They've been minding their business. Black people have been chilling, minding their business, and white people that were allies. These white men have threatened them. They have threatened violence. They have spread a bunch of misinformation. But somehow, when it came to talking about the things in the Declaration, they were wanting harmony and peace, and they were not, violent people, and they wanted to just be understanding so that they could all live together as a people.
The what?
The whites.
The whites with the what Declaration of Independence. First of all,
literally
that
was like,
is so ironic to be even saying that in a Declaration of Independence, right? A white one, when you're talking about inclusivity, yet in the title of it, it's exclusive.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. And literally was like, he needs to get, but this is what was funny. We want peace and we want harmony. He needs to get his black ass out the fuck out of here, or we're going to lynch him. But we want peace and harmony and we don't want any violence. But he need to go.
Otherwise he's going to die. But we want peace and violence, he need to go.
Yeah, he need to go. Also, all the blacks that are here, y'all also need to get up out of here as well. Y'all need to move. Y'all need to go somewhere. Y'all, because we're not having harmony. We want harmony. We want peace.
We want peace.
We don't want any issues.
The White Declaration of Independence really wants harmony and peace. Yep. And inclusivity. But inclusivity just with this group.
Yeah, with this group. And so they were like, yeah. And so people actually brought this to a committee, to a big ass meeting, and like 400 and something people were like, yes, this sounds about right. Let me go ahead and let me sign. My bad, it sounded about white. And they went ahead and let me sign this. This sounds amazing. Let me get this together. I want to be a part. And they delivered this information to this group of black folks, that those prominent black leaders in the area that were in positions of power. They was like, we gonna take this over here. They need to read it so they can know what the fuck's up. They was reading it and they was like, we ain't gonna do that shit. What do you mean? They was like, we just want peace. Like, maybe you calm down. The thing that was kind of crazy was they were so pressed about Alex. He's like, hey, he don't speak for all of us. We understand that you're upset, but like, maybe calm down. maybe, you know, take a beat, try to figure it out. Like, he doesn't speak for all of us. It was just, that's his thoughts. Maybe we can find a way to work this out. And they was like, y'all talking too much, and left. So the group, the committee came together and was like, we gonna have to appease this white man. Okay. So they wrote up a little letter, and they were like, hey, homie, drop this off to this man's house. Let him know, okay, we will follow whatever the fuck he want to do.
Yeah.
And it'll be fine.
Yeah.
The guy takes it to his house, leaves it in the mailbox. Apparently, homie don't check his mailbox. He never received this letter. And the letter that he published out later on was not the letter that was actually delivered to his house, per the person who delivered it. He was like, that's not actually what I gave him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Because following all of this, there was news stories and all this that came out.
So it's lying.
Of flat out lying.
Flat out lying.
There's pictures of everything of what's going on. And he's like, this is the letter. And the guy was like, I didn't give him that. So they get with they homies, and he's like, these black people got another thing coming because they really got us fucked up out here. We are gonna go lynch that man. We're gonna go to his place of business, and we gonna lynch that man. Come to find out, homie had already been he had stopped running.
Yeah.
But he had a white ally that had been with the men. And homie came back to Alex and was like, hey homie, I just want to put you on game real quick. They coming to lynch your ass.
You need to go.
You need to go.
It's time to leave.
Say this password and they will let you free because they gonna think you a white man because nobody's supposed to know that password except these white men. And Alex was like, bet. He got his brother, he got his homies, and they bounced. They used the password and they dipped because the whites was talking about the necktie parties that they were gonna do. Once they found this man.
Oh, not the necktie.
The necktie parties.
That shit is dark.
Girl.
That shit is dark.
Girl. So they get out. And, you know, Alfred Walden and his group of thugs proceed to go into town saying that they had not heard anything back from anybody, and they were going to take it upon themselves to do all this destruction. So what they did is they went into town.
Again, this is a small group. This is a small group of unchecked white men. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it pisses me off because we, again, currently have another small group of unchecked whites that are fucking up equality and freedom for everybody. Just love that. It only takes like five. It only takes like five to destroy an entire fucking community.
Literally took one who was extremely pressed, and he had some homeboys that was like, yeah, man, you kind of right.
Yeah.
Like,
and they was like, sure, we'll ride out. We ain't got nothing to do today.
They was like, yeah, if it's not white, it ain't right. And they was like, yeah, correct. So
continuing.
They did all that shit. So him and his band of thugs went to the newspaper and just burned that bitch to the ground. They went looking for him, but they couldn't find him because homie had already bounced. So the newspaper wasn't enough because they were like, damn, this is so crazy. So they started burning down a whole bunch of other shit and started like taking out businesses. Again, this is a thriving community. So they are taking out businesses. They're taking out government offices. They're blocking people from getting inside government offices, like that were officials. Like they were like, y'all can't come in here. We don't give a fuck what you think. You can't come in here.
Yeah.
Then, like I told you, there's a nearby town that was called Brooklyn. They went over there because they had heard news from somebody somewhere that black people were over there going into their areas and beating up their people and killing their people. So what did they do? They ran over there and they just started killing everybody they could. They started taking out people. They took out black people. They took out people who were allies of black people. They were taking out everybody, and they were specifically saying, kill every one of them you see. Every single one of them, kill them all. So bad that in the records there is no actual record of how many people died.
Yeah.
They don't have a record.
Yeah.
They have, it may have been 20, it might have been 30. It actually could have been 80 to 60. It might have been, a couple hundred. It might have been thousands and thousands. We're not really sure.
Yeah.
Nobody really kept track. So they went and burned shit. They started killing people. They did the white people even crazier. Not even crazier because they did the white people like they was doing the black people. They ended up taking them, pretty much dragging them behind cars like they did.
Yeah.
And just barely lynching them.
Yeah.
Just barely. So, girl. So they did all of this, and they got what they wanted. It did end up getting the Democratic vote, so it had flipped to Democrat. It was Democrat until, I think, 72. 1972.
1972.
And you know what's really crazy? Because you, like I said, this was a different time. So Democrats to it was when it was flopped. And a lot of people know. I don't know. A lot of people know the history about Republicans and Democrats, but it was not what it is today.
Yeah,
So
they didn't. Yeah, the Democratic Party was actually
real crazy.
Basically what the Republican Party looks like today is what the Democratic Party used to look like.
Right.
So
they did end up getting some control, and then they had some black people in position still, because again, there were people that were elected officials, and they were like, y'all got to get out. Y'all have to resign, and y'all also need to leave. And they would go to their areas of the place that they reside, and they showed up at their doorsteps, and they was like, you have to go, you need to get on this train tonight. Get out or we're going to kill you. They had people, I forgot, it was the Wilmington something Corps chasing people out of town. So much so that people were fleeing and going to swamps for shelter, and just going into random areas just to find a place to be safe slightly.
Yeah.
They tried to reach out to the president, the White House, and things like that to get some assistance in regards to what was taking place. And they pretty much were told that there was nothing they could do because the governor had to request it. And the governor was like, I ain't doing that shit. Fuck them. Yeah, we should have all the rights back. Like, what the fuck? So they was like, all right, bet. So they just, the community pretty much came to a halt in regards to having those differences there. The part that was really wild about, well, not really, because it was kind of crazy, and a lot of it was crazy anyway. But the North Carolina, so I said that they didn't have another Republican. It wasn't Republican again until 1972. And between 1898 and 1928, they actually didn't have any black people in Congress at all, which not really a surprise considering the time, but also a surprise considering that there was people already in office in the 1800s, late 1800s. The thing that was
Congress was too much, though.
Yeah, it was too much.
You guys can have your pretend power, but Congress is too much.
Too much. You better have power within your home.
Yeah.
And barely that.
Yeah.
The thing that was really crazy, though, North Carolina as a whole did not elect another black congressperson until 1992. What year were you born?
1991. Ooh.
One of the craziest things about the mass killings of black people in Wilmington was that it created a whole bunch of jobs. Not only were there the mass killings, but there was also, for the few people that were still in the area, which wasn't much, they were not allowed to work in certain jobs, which created a huge opening for jobs in the labor fields. Not fields, but labor, like the labor industry.
Yeah.
But in perfect fashion, white men were like, I don't want to work this job.
Of course not.
This is a job of a black person. The money is a job of a black person. I don't want to do this shit. I'm better than that. So they didn't want to take the jobs. Because they was like, well, I don't want to work this. Who's going to work them?
I wonder.
What does that sound like?
What does that sound like?
That sounds very familiar.
That sounds very familiar and very, very recent.
Sounds very familiar. Time and always.
History repeats itself when you allow the same people in power to continue to do the things that they want to do and how they are going to do them when they are unchecked. And there is unchecked people still in power.
Still in power. So all in all, this is just the gist of what happened with the Wilmington race riots. They try to say it's not a race riot. It wasn't that. It was that. It was. They try to make it seem like it was more than, it was something, and it was deeper than that. This all boiled down to race. It absolutely boiled down to race. There was so much that was behind it. There was so many moving parts to this, and we could only tap into a little bit. But definitely check it out. There's a crap ton of books, documentaries, literature to read. There's just places that you can get this information. So please get the information. Super side note, well, not super side note, it's related, but I actually made a painting about this. I had newspaper articles from 1898 that actually talked about the massacres on the front page, and I have a painting that has all of that in it because I wanted people to know about what was going on in the country and what had happened in the country, because a lot of people are unaware.
And what happened to that painting, Deidre?
It actually got destroyed, and I had to I had to fix it. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that was just a typical Sunday for white folks back then. It really was. It's cringy. It's upsetting. It's disturbing because history repeats itself. And it's, you know, with the way things are going today in the world, it's just scary.
It's just always so interesting to see how they will they will stew over whatever,
because they are just when you have poor straight white men, they can't handle that inferiority.
Girl, these weren't even the poor.
But I'm just saying they can't handle that inferiority, because the thing is like, when these men want more power, and I don't mean necessarily poor as in like financial or anything like that. I mean, yes, you have poverty and stuff like that, but I'm talking about like poor in power, poor in finances, poor in leadership, poor in all of these things where they need to feel more superior than other people. They have a superiority complex. Yeah. And it's like, especially back then, it was very much apparent. Today, still very apparent. Just a little, they like to dress it up in different ways today.
Yeah.
So
it's just, yeah, it is. It's never shocking to hear any of this information. As much as I have looked into,
I said, yeah, no.
As much as I had looked into the Wilmington massacre and had read about it and seen documentaries and things like that, the more and more I look into it, the more and more I find out, the more and more I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's just there, and it's all of the same, because you want to know what I'm going to talk about today? Surrounded by an election. Surrounded by an election, and with white men not believing that black people should be allowed to do the same things that they can do.
That they were already doing, though. That's the thing that's so crazy.
That was legal for them.
They were already doing these things, and things were actually thriving. Things were actually growing. Nothing was even happening that was causing it to look like there would be any level of destruction or that people should be in concern for their safety. It was already working.
Yeah.
And they still were like, no, we're going to do it better. And they actually kind of almost ruined it, because they kicked out so many people. They couldn't figure out how to get back running well.
Yeah.
And they had to really restart and do jobs that they didn't want to do because they kicked out the people who were doing those jobs.
So what I'll be talking about today in honor of Black History Month, and just because we want to educate folks on this shit, because I feel like this isn't going to be talked about ever. It was never talked about in history class for me growing up. It was never talked about. I had to learn all of these things on my own. I was taught about my own history and my own culture and stuff like that, but I was not taught about other people's histories and struggles and cultures, other than we knew the basics of slavery. That was it. We didn't talk about these things, and so I think it's important that we get them out. So today I'm going to talk about the Ocoee massacre, and people also do not like to call it a massacre,
but it was literally
a massacre. It was literally a massacre. So this also started November in 1920. This was during an election time. Black people were allowed to vote. Well, specifically black men were allowed to vote. So let me say that specifically black men were allowed to vote at this time. So they were able to go in and vote, and they had these polls open and stuff like that. And election day, I believe, was like November 2nd, if I remember correctly, but I know it was November 1920. So they go in, right? Black people are just trying to get in Ocoee. And this is Ocoee, Florida, by the way. We live in Florida ourselves.
Ocoee's what, like maybe 20 minutes away from here?
20-30 minutes from us. Yeah, not far. So anyways, it's election day, and people are, it's voting day, and they're going and they're voting and all of this stuff. And these black people in Ocoee wanted to go and vote. They wanted to exercise their right as an American citizen to go ahead and cast their vote. These white people that were in the polls were like, no, you got to go. You can't be here. You cannot be here. We don't want you here. Please go. Get out of here. It was starting to get very aggressive. So they were met with resistance. The voters had to prove that they were registered from a notary through R.C. Bigelow, who was regularly sent on fishing trips, so that it was impossible to find. So in order for black people to vote, they had to get notarized, and they had to go to this one specific person to get notarized, and he was sent on fishing trips constantly. Constantly sent on fishing trips so nobody could know where he was.
The way that they knew the power of a black vote.
Yeah. They still do today.
Still do.
That's why we have the Electoral College. Yeah. Yeah. That's why it's put into place. It's racist. Please understand that. And if you don't believe that and you want to argue with me, it's okay. You're an idiot. Go educate yourself. So anyways, there was a man by the name of Moses Norman who had went up to the poll. He got pissed off. He was like, what the fuck is going on? I'm just trying to place my vote. He went it peacefully. He left. He came back and tried to do it again and was trying to be peaceful. He ended up contacting Judge John Chaney that told him that the interference of somebody being allowed to vote is illegal. Give me the list of the names of the people and let me know. So Moses was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and get you them names. No problem. He goes back over to there. And now Moses kept a, why am I blinking? Okay. He kept a shotgun in the truck.
He kept a shotgun in the truck.
He kept a shotgun in the truck, right? So he kept a shotgun in the truck, and somehow there's not any sort of specifics on it as to it's very who got the shotgun first sort of deal. But these white folks ended up taking the shotgun in some way, some form, some fashion. They took his gun and they chased him out. So he went back to the polls. Oh yeah. So then white people did what they do best, right? They didn't like it. There was like, who the fuck is this uppity black man coming up in here and trying to tell us what we can and cannot do? We don't like that shit. We ain't gonna have that shit. So what do best? They form a mob. They form a mob of roughly about 100 people, right?
Those miscreants and those thugs.
They formed a mob of roughly about 100 people. So they are pissed off about Moses Norman, and they are like, who the fuck do you think you are? So then there's a rumor that's going around saying that Moses is chilling with July Perry.
The thing that is so crazy about this, and as most of the stories, this is one black man caused a whole bunch of white people to be super pressed.
Yep.
One black man.
Yeah.
Caused a group of white people to be upset.
Yeah. And so these group of white people were like, we chasing all the black people away. They are not allowed to vote. They are not going to be able to vote. So in leisure and fashion, Sam Salisbury, the former chief of police of Orlando, was called to lead a lynch mob to, quote, find and punish Moses Norman. He later proudly bragged about his part with his events. So he, the police chief of Orlando, Sam Salisbury, he was like, we gonna form this lynch mob and we gonna make it happen because we can't have these black folks out here telling us what we can and cannot do. We chased them away from the polls. That wasn't enough. Now we got to terrorize them because we got to make sure they know that they are less than us.
Know your place.
Know your place. So anyways, the rumor was that Norman was chilling with July Perry in his home. So this mob of about 100 white people were like, okay, let's go ahead and break into this house and go take this man, right? Norman was not there. Moses Norman was not there. He was not there at the house. They don't know where he was. He actually ends up getting away scot-free. Scot-free from at least this incident. We don't know where he was after that, but at least this incident, he got away scot-free. So anyway, so they come to Perry's home. They're all outside. They're yelling and screaming, come out with your hands up, blah, blah, blah. July Perry's wife was also there with him. And it's not clear. Of course, it's not clear. White people say that there were several hundreds of black folks that were in this one home defending the home, right?
It's probably the several black folks was probably like the mom, the dad, and like 3 kids.
Yeah.
And a dog.
Zora Neale Hurston actually quoted, no, that's not true. According to historical facts and from what she's researched, July Perry was the only one that was there defending the home. So
they love to lie and say that there's more people there than there actually are.
They really do.
Do it all the time.
They really do. So anyways, Salisbury goes to the back door and he goes, bam, and kicks open the back door. And Mr. Perry's standing there with a whole gun. And he's like, no, ratatata. So he shoots fucking Salisbury and it hits him in the arm. And then he kills 2 other people. And then his wife, he was like, you need to get the fuck out of here, like ASAP Rocky. Like, you've got to go. So he was like, okay. He starts running into the cane fields, the sugar cane fields. And he's booking it, right? So this mob is like, okay, we can't, like, clearly we're not going to be able to handle this on our own. We need to get more people.
We need to get more people. Of course, not stop and get our head. No. We need more people because we got to kill them all.
Yeah. So we need to get more people. So they scary ass white people called reinforcements in Orlando, Apopka, and Orange County. And during this time, July Perry was injured, so he was like, I'm gonna run. So he starts running through the field, whatever. He ends up going into the hospital, getting they end up finding him and they arrest him. They take him to the hospital to patch him up before he gets sent to jail. On his way to jail, this mob, the same mob, goes around and attacks the car, essentially, pulls him out and lynches him, and end up killing him. All because he wanted to vote. And they told him no, and that was it. He just wanted to go and exercise his right as a human being, as an American, because voting is a social construct that we created, not what humans create. Anyways, but you know what I mean. That's all he wanted to do. So they end up lynching him. They left his body hanging from a telephone post, and they left him there for several days. So now white people in white people fashion said, this isn't enough. We got the one man that really pissed us off, but this is not enough. We cannot have this. So with about 200 men, they decided to try and massacre the rest of the black community. They set fire to homes, and when they set fire to homes, as people were running out, they shot them. While they did the same thing to black churches. They burned down black churches, school homes, lodge rooms were burned down. Now, this was a budding black community. Was not as thriving as Wilmington. It was not as thriving as like Tulsa. It wasn't as thriving but it was a budding black community. They had their own stores, they had their own businesses, they were doing their own thing and minding their own goddamn business. They just wanted to exercise their fucking right to vote, and white people said no. So black people were like, fuck this, we're not fucking doing this anymore. So they decided to fight. They had a fucking shootout up until about 4-something in the morning. They was just shooting people left and right. White people were coming and shooting people. And now you have to remember too, during this time, there was still a larger population of white people than there were black people in most areas. White people did not want to have black people in large groups. They were intimidated by them. They were intimidated by their potential success and what they could do when they became successful. Because they were insecure, essentially, about what they could do in their position in their own lives. So eventually they were forced to retreat into the woods. They were forced to run over to Winter Garden at Apopka, Florida, which were larger black communities there at the time. So many black residents were victims. Perry's wife and daughter were also injured during this encounter. They did survive, but they were sent to Tampa and away from their remaining home to be cared for there because they didn't want the white people didn't want any more disturbances.
Tampa is about an hour and a half away from Ocoee.
Mm-hmm. They said, you got to get out of here because you and your family's caused too many problems.
So this is the thing. You and your family cause too many problems. Not the mass group of white people that have been killing all these people. No, it is this particular family has causing all these issues.
This is what is upsetting about these stories a lot of the times for me, other than the obvious, you know what I mean? Yeah. The obvious of the massacre and the harm and the death and the destruction of something that could have been beautiful. It is, and the oppression of a particular race of people. What is the most upsetting to me is the fact that they can't take accountability for it. They continue to refuse to take accountability for it by ripping and stripping away schools of history books, certain books, different classes that could teach history about these things, about how to...
Because you don't want to offend the kids. You don't want to offend those kids. It'll hurt their feelings if they learn the history of what their ancestors did. But the thing is, though, is
that they don't want to be held accountable. Yeah. And that's the thing that is upsetting the most, is they never want to be held accountable. And when you call them out on something, they will immediately get defensive as opposed to becoming introspective. And it's appalling. And I'm not going to say all white people are like that, because not all white people are like that. And if they are not like that, then you are guilty by association because you don't speak the fuck up. And this is the problem that I have, is like, there's no accountability. There's no accountability for your past actions, your current actions, your lack of actions. There's no accountability for it. And it's frustrating and it pisses me off because you have OPD who probably don't even talk about this, who probably has Sam Salisbury hanging up somewhere in their goddamn fucking building. Probably. In honor of him being the chief of police at a certain time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like they don't.
It's, you know what's so funny about the accountability thing, and this is something I did forget to mention about the whole Wilmington massacre, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
After all of it took place, articles came out, because again, it was in the media heavy about what took place, and there was a lot of articles blaming Alex Manley, who was the newspaper owner and publisher, for everything that happened.
Which is
they blamed him
sad.
for the reason why they acted the way they did. It was his fault.
Because they cannot take accountability. They sweep in and they cause destruction and chaos. I mean, you think about the fucking women and children who were murdered during the Ocoee massacre. You think about the women and children who were murdered during Wilmington race riots. You think about the women and children who are currently sitting in ICE detention centers, who are having to sleep with fucking those little aluminum foil blankets in lice-infested areas. And you think about this shit, but it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. And black and brown people,
for not doing better.
Black and brown people are always the one to suffer for the insecurity of white people. And it's infuriating and frustrating. Now, I'm going to go ahead and change the subject because I'm going to continue on my soapbox and get even more pissed off because my blood is boiling. So I want to talk about something cool. So I wanted to talk about Bessie Blount Griffin. She's super fucking cool. She did some cool shit. She was a STEM woman. She was in physical therapy. She ended up going into forensic science. She was a nurse. I mean, she just was like doing all the things. She was like, I want to do all the fucking things. She actually developed the feeding tube for amputees during World War II. So the amputees that didn't have like arms and stuff like that, you know, she developed this feeding tube where basically it was this long plastic tube where the food can go in and all they had to do was just kind of bite down and the food would fall into their mouth and it would like open and so on and so forth. I think that's disgusting because in my mind it's like old cabbage that's just like sliding down it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it was. I don't know if that's even true. But this is just where my brain takes it to. But anyway, she invented an electric self-feeding apparatus for amputees. She used plastic boiling water to mold the material, a file, ice pick hammer, and some dishes to create a prototype of her invention. The device had a tube to transplant individual bites of food to patients' mouths. The patients would bite down on the tube, and then the next portion of food would dispense to the mouthpiece with the attached machine. This allowed patients to control how much they would eat without assistance from others. A part of the device was patented in 1948. So I thought that was super cool because before that, basically what they were doing was essentially force feeding people and they were taking plastic tubes and shoving it down their throats. And so that's what was happening. And that actually still occurs. That is something that still happens in some hospitals. So they would take a plastic tube and shove it down and then just basically have a funnel and force feed food into people's throats. And this was a little bit easier to be able for them to actually maintain and control how much they were going to be eating. So I thought that was cool. So that was really cool. Bessie Blount Griffith, and she was badass. She was a badass bitch because she ended up getting into forensics, which is what we do.
Yeah. Shout out to you.
Shout out to you, Miss Bessie girl.
That's cool.
Yeah. You got anything else you want to add?
Nah, girl.
Okay. You want to put that mic up to your mouth though when you're talking?
Oh, no, I have nothing else to add.
Well, thanks for being here on Bumpin Gums. We appreciate y'all being here and letting us, my autistic brain and Deidre's little neurospicy brain just info dump on y'all. And, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, opinions, we'd love to hear them. If you have any negative, hateful bullshit, you can go away. We don't want it. You can go ahead and go to your little hate groups and talk about it over there because we don't want to hear about it. But thanks so much for being here. We love y'all and love the support. Bye.